We're talking to Abigail Bassalious today. Abigail, how you doing?
I'm good.
Tell us about your piece in the Kaleidescope magazine.
Well, it's kind of about how ancient Egyptians used to believe in these gods, and I really like how the concept, so I use that in my writing.
So when you were doing the research behind it, did you have to go to online to different encyclopedias like Wikipedia, or did you go to a library? How did you do that?
I already knew about it, so I knew about it from reading books and everything about it.
Okay, so when you found out that your piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
I was excited and happy.
When you hear someone says, I don't like to read, how would you encourage them to read?
Try and find a book that they feel like they like it and understand and would read it.
What type of books do you like to read?
I usually like to read kind of realistic fiction books.
Yeah, you like to hear the real story behind it, don't you? You like the real story, yeah. So do you think being a writer is in your future?
I might write on my spare time. Maybe.
On your spare time? What kind of books would you write on your spare time then?
I don't really know.
No? But you think maybe if I was going to do it, I probably would do that then, right? Well, thank you so much, Abigail, for being with us today.
You're welcome.
We're talking to Addyson Richard, and what's really special about this particular one is that I remember you from 2 years ago. So excited to see you again.
I was a guest on your show.
Yeah, excited to see you again. So you're in the Kaleidescope magazine again. So how did that make you feel?
Oh, it makes me feel very good because I can understand my teachers appreciating writing talents for a lot of people, and to be the only one picked out of my school is a very good opportunity for me. I feel as if it would really further my writing talents.
So what is your piece about in this year?
Well, it's called Green, and it's not necessarily about the color green, but you mind if I read an excerpt?
Go right ahead.
I push myself off the ground, and I stand. The view becomes clearer. I see city skylines, power lines, and narrow towers nearly touching the clouds. The green didn't last long, but the beauty of the buildings was just enough to complement the green. Deep blacks and faint whites formed the fog. I can see the lights as the sun dims into a shiny red. Red. It was turning red.
That sounds very intriguing, and so I know those of us who have the magazine are looking forward to reading it. So, how would you encourage someone who doesn't like to read to read?
There are no people who do not like to read. There is only a person who hasn't found the correct book. I forgot who had written that quote, but it hangs up in my school's library, and I look at it and I think to myself, this is exactly what people these days under the 12 set, I would say, are. They usually don't like to read. Or some other people, including me, I used to read all the time. I read a lot still. And per my English class, I have to read a book in supplement. So right now I'm reading Hollow City, part of the Miss Peregrine series. Good books. And I've seen the movie come out. But you have to, it's part of the grade. And she gives us a paper stating what came out on the book and what we were saying about. And I find that good because while these days people don't know which exact book they're looking for, a person who has found a book is just as happy as a person who is writing one.
Makes sense. So, thank you so much for being with us today, Addison.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
We're talking to Andrew Leandres today. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
Now, what's the piece that you put into the Kaleidescope magazine?
I put a piece called A Beach in Brazil. I think it's a really good piece, and I spent a lot of time working on it.
Oh, yeah? So what is the piece about when you talk about it?
It's about a beach in Brazil that I've been working on for a while. And there's some problems that I had when I was first typing it, and I decided, I should add this, I should add that,
And when you found out that your piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react?
I was really excited.
You were really excited? Now, how would you encourage a kid who doesn't like to read to read?
I don't know. Really.
Well, what books do you like to read?
I like I like books about games and like Diary of the Wimpy Kid books. I think those are really good books.
So you like books that kind of get your imagination going. You can think really good. Now, do you think being a writer is in your future?
I think so, but I wanted to be a veterinarian.
You want to be a veterinarian? Well, you can write about animals.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Andrew, for being with me today, okay?
Okay.
All right. We are talking to Ashley Mathews today. Ashley, how you doing?
Great, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So tell us about the pieces in the Kaleidescope magazine.
My piece specifically. So I wrote about America's gift to my generation,
Okay.
and my inspiration for it was my papa, who is a veteran of. He trained in Colorado, I think it was, and he never did go to fight in a war, but he did train down there, and he was my inspiration for it.
All right, and tell your father thank him for his service when you see him. So you got this story, you guys brought it for your papa, and so when you found out that your story had been selected for the magazine, how did that make you feel?
I was very excited. I had published at another contest too, and I did not win for that one, but I was very excited because I have never done this one before, and I really felt my essay was good. So
For kids who don't like to read, how would you inspire them to read?
honestly, you just have to find the right book, and once you find the right book, you'll just find your passion of reading. It's different for everyone, but still one book.
Now, what kind of books do you like to read?
I honestly will read anything I can find because I really like reading, but I usually like something with action and adventure just because it gets me interested, and I'll continue reading the book. So
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
I want to go into law and politics, so I have to be able to obviously write and present stuff. So yes,
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
We're talking to Ayden Westercamp today. Ayden, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Tell us about the piece that you did in the Kaleidescope magazine.
Well, it's about an adventurer. He's looking for treasure in Bolivia, and basically it's about his journey to find the temple of which the treasure is located.
Oh, so like an archaeological story.
Yeah.
Do you like artifacts and archaeology, stuff like that?
Kind of.
Kind of?
I think
Okay.
it's cool to find things from the past.
Oh, you like history and
Yeah.
History's fascinating. So when you found out that your piece was in the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
I was really happy, and I was kind of surprised since writing really isn't my strong suit.
Well, obviously it is. It got selected to the Kaleidescope magazine. So, do you like to read?
I love to read.
Well, and I know you like history. What other books do you like to read?
I like to read picture books like Dave Pilkey's books, like Captain Underpants, Dogman, and things like that.
So, how would you encourage a kid who doesn't like to read?
I'd just say start off with fun, smaller books, like picture books and with small words, and then once he starts liking it, you could get into the bigger chapter books.
That's how you would do it?
That's how I would do it.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
I'm not really sure.
Hey, we'll find out later, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll find out.
Well, thank you so much, Ayden, for being with us today.
Thank you.
We are talking to Brooklyn Davidson. How you doing today?
Good.
Now, tell us about the story or the poem that you wrote in Kaleidescope.
Well, I wanted to write this because I wanted to show you how to grow a garden because my dad and me are growing a garden this year.
What type of things are you growing in your garden?
Well, we're going to grow veggies and flowers.
Veggies and flowers? All right. So do you like digging in the earth and playing around with the dirt, or do you put it in pots?
Yep,
Put
I
it
put
in
it in pots.
Okay. So when you found out that your story got into the magazine, how did you feel?
Oh, I felt happy.
Happy? So what kind of books do you like to read?
Well, I like nonfiction books.
You like history books or
History.
like that? Do you think one day you'd be a writer? Would you write history books like you like to read or something else?
History books.
History books. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brooklyn, for being with us today.
You're welcome.
We are talking to Chloe VanTine today. How you doing?
Good.
Tell us about the piece that you wrote in the Kaleidescope magazine.
It's called My Quest for the Rose. It's about a brother and
a sister who were at their grandma's house when they were playing in the woods, and they found this weird rose. So they took it back to their house, and after a couple of weeks, it didn't get brown or anything. So they looked at it, and then they had just went to a weird place, and they didn't know where they were, and then the sister, she said, "I think I know where we are," and then that's basically where I had to end it.
All right. When you found out that your story had been selected part of the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
Super happy.
So when you hear a kid say, "I don't like to read," how would you encourage them to pick up a book and read?
I'd encourage them by saying, reading is just like writing. It's expressing your feelings. You get to, and you can pick any book that you feel like. You can, like if you're mad, you can find a scary or adventurous book, and you can find a book that is just perfect for you.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome.
We are talking to Demahri Hull today. Demahri, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Tell us about the piece that's in the Kaleidescope magazine.
My piece is The Football Life. It's about how I want to become a football player and want to become better at football.
What position would you play as in football?
I might want to be defensive end. Maybe.
You're not quite sure yet?
Not quite sure.
Yeah, but you just want to be a football player, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you found out that your piece was selected in the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
At first, I didn't really know what the Kaleidoscope was. So to be honest, I didn't really react much.
But I bet you were excited when you found out, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because now you're a published author. You know, now you're a published author. So do you like to read books or comic books or stuff like that?
Yeah, I like to read books.
What kind of books do you like to read?
Sports books. I read sports book about the Pistons, the Lions. I really like that stuff because it really shows me about the sports team history and what happened.
So how would you encourage a kid that doesn't like to read to read? Because you like sports. So if they like sports, you say, hey, read about things that you like to do?
Yeah. Everybody has their own passion, so I think they should read about what they like.
All right. Well, thank you for being with me today, Demahri. We are talking to Devin Schular today. How you doing?
Good.
Tell us about your piece in the Kaleidescope magazine.
Well, it is a story that I wrote in my ELA class about a fishing trip that we went on when we were in Alabama, and I wrote it about how my dad caught the biggest fish on the trip.
How big was the fish?
I think it was like a 4 or 5 pounder.
Whoa. So we're talking like this big or?
About like
Oh, man. Do you know what type of fish it was?
Yeah, it was a largemouth bass.
Oh, my father likes to fish, so that's kind of cool that we got that in common.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. So when you found out that your piece that got selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
I was pretty excited. I mean, it's quite an honor to do that. So.
Well, you're a published author. That's awesome, you know? So let me ask you this. When you want to encourage someone to read who doesn't like to read, how would you go about doing that?
Well, I would say, well, maybe find something that interests you. Maybe like if you like something about, history or something like that, to read something that you like to read to first get started into reading and then, go from there.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
It's a quite good possibility, yeah.
It's a good possibility?
It's a good possibility, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for being with us today.
Yes, thank you.
We're talking to Elizabeth Lajiness. Elizabeth, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, actually.
Tell us about your piece that you have in the magazine.
All right, it's called Second Grade Robin, and it's actually a true story of how I discovered I was allergic to an art supply.
To art supply?
Yes, in art supply, oil pastels.
Oh, how did you find that out? I gotta know.
Well, it started out, we were coloring in robins for the State Fair of Michigan. And our teacher told us that since we were being so well behaved, we got to do it with a grown-up kid supply, oil pastels. We're like, great, woohoo, we get to be grown-ups, woo! So we get these colors, and I started getting hives on my hands, and I'm all itchy, my eyes are all watery. And my mom worked in the building, so she was right across the hall. And so my teacher's like, are you okay? I'm like, I don't think I am. So she pulls me all the way into my mom's room and she's like, look at this. And my mom tells me she remembers seeing hives all over my hands. She's like, oh my goodness. So they made me wash my hands, obviously, like 3 times. And then afterwards I went to the doctor's office and they said, yeah, she's allergic to that. So.
Oh, it's a good way to find out, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you found out that your piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react?
Well, that was a funny story, actually, because my dad has this voice he uses when he's really mad at you. And so he decided to pull a little prank on me. Because I was upstairs in my room, and he's like, Elizabeth, get down here right now! I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck did I do? So I come running down the stairs, and I hear my mom's voice, you better get here, you were in so much trouble. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what have I done? So I get down there, and they have these huge grins on their faces, and they're in the kitchen, and they hold up this kaleidoscope thing, and I'm like, no. No way. I was not very happy with them.
Oh, man. Now, how would you encourage someone who doesn't like to read to read?
Well, I always say start with what interests you, because I have a couple of brothers, 3 of them actually, who hate reading, and I don't get why, because I love to read, but I tell them, start with what interests you, because if you're reading a book that you don't really like, and you're not really interested in, it's just going to set you more against reading. So if you read something that you're interested in, like my brother reads Diary of a Minecraft Zombie, you're more likely to get into reading, and then you might try to read something that you're a little less interested in, or maybe is a little bit more complicated. Just got to go step by step.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
Maybe. I also want to be a pediatric neurologist, so we'll see how that works out.
Okay, you can do it. But thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome.
We're talking to Elle Shimmell today. How you doing?
Good.
Tell us a little bit about the piece that you have in the Kaleidescope magazine.
There's a hedgehog named Jack, and he's trying to find a place to hibernate for the winter, and there was only a few days left to hibernate, and he had to find a hole, and then on one of the last days he found a hole, and it had cobwebs, so he swept it up, and then he hibernated there, and when he woke up in the spring sore and tired.
When you found out that your story had been put into the Kaleidescope magazine, how did that make you feel?
Great.
Great. So when you hear someone say, I don't like to read, how would you help a kid who doesn't like to read to read?
Talk about how it makes me feel and how it makes other people feel, because sometimes other people have different feelings about reading, and they tell them, and sometimes I hear those feelings from other people.
What kind of books do you like to read?
I like to read Junie B. Jones and Captain Underpants.
Nice. Do you think being a writer is in your future?
Sort of.
Sort of? Okay, well thank you so much, Elle, for being with us today. We are talking to Graydon Bush today. How you doing?
Good.
Now, when you found out that your piece was in the Kaleidescope magazine, how'd you feel about it?
I don't know. I wasn't really surprised. I read books pretty much constantly. Never mind whether or not I'm allowed to or not. You know, like school.
So, what was the piece that you wrote about? What was it about?
Books, my favorite thing.
Books is your favorite thing? Were you talking about reading books? Were you talking about just
what a book is.
Oh, good.
The only thing I like better than reading books is reading books while eating a snack.
That's the best way to do it, because you read your book, you eat, and you're feeling great, right? So when you hear a kid say, I don't like to read, how would you encourage them to read?
I don't know.
I don't know. You don't know? Well, what kind of, you say you read books constantly, so do you read a specific genre of books?
I guess so. I do like fantasy stuff like Brandon Moore. Other than, I can't remember any other authors, but series like what's that? Plus Jackson the Olympians.
So you like fantasy
and
books?
Canes. Yeah, like Inheritance series. It's the final book in that series is my all-time favorite book. Let's see. Most recently, I've been reading the Corinthian line. Those two series are actually quite similar. The difference is that there aren't as many dragons in the Corinthian line.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
Not really. I want to be a software engineer.
A software engineer? All right.
Coding.
Well, Graydon, thank you for being with us on the show today.
Okay. Thanks.
We are talking to Hailey Theisen today. Hailey, how you doing?
Good.
Now, tell us about the piece that's in the Kaleidescope magazine. What's the title?
Oh, The Girl in Disguise.
And what's that? What's it about?
It's about a girl who goes undercover to find out if her parents are actually happy living with her. And she and the maid, well, they own a maid, so they switch places and they try to find out if her parents are really happy.
So that's the story about a girl trying to find if her parents are really happy. Fascinating. So when you found out that your piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react?
I was actually really nervous and really excited at the same time.
Do you like to read?
Yes.
How would you encourage a child who doesn't like to read to read?
Well, I would start, maybe you should try and, if they have a favorite book or something, let them read it more, and you start reading to them, and then let them try and read a little bit by themselves, and then they'll start trying to get into reading, and soon they'll love to read books.
Do you think being a writer is in your future? What books would you write about?
I also wrote 2 other books, but they haven't been accepted. I just like writing. The 2 other books, one's called If You Give a Penguin a Popsicle, and another one is called The Dog Game of Chess.
The Dog Game of Chess? That sounds fun. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Yes.
This is Parker J. Cole. We are talking to Jacob Taylor. Jacob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Are you enjoying yourself right now?
Yeah.
Now, what was the name of the piece that you did for the Kaleidescope magazine?
It was called My Gotcha Day. It was about when I was adopted. My mom right now, who's taking the pictures, when I was 2 or something like that, my mom adopted me, and I just wrote about that because it was something I felt and something I felt like I wanted to share to other people because it was such a great moment for me.
Now, how would you encourage kids who don't like to read to read?
I think it inspires you and that it expands your imagination more, and that once you read a lot more, it's like you can't stop, and I think people should feel what it feels like. If they want to read something, they can read that, and if they want to make something that they want to read, they can make that.
When you found out that your piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react?
I was really excited. I didn't know what to think of it. I just really, really liked that. I was picked for that.
Do you think you'll become a writer or you'll do something with writing ever since you... Okay. Well,
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jake. I appreciate it. We're talking to Jewel Peterson today. How you doing?
Good.
Tell us about your piece that you put into the Kaleidescope magazine.
It was a piece that was really personal to me. I had wrote it before in my journal, but I felt like it really spoke to how I was feeling, so I sent it in, and I was selected for the magazine.
How did you react to that?
I was excited.
Excited. So when you take something from your journal and then you put it out there where a lot of people can see, what was your reasoning behind that?
I mean, I think it's people out there that it could help them.
So you just wanted to really help other people.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So when you hear people say, I don't like to read, how do you encourage someone who says, I don't like to read to read?
Help them find something that they would really like, have an interest in.
So what kind of books do you like to read?
I don't really read like that anymore.
Not anymore. Well, you got to pick up a book. You're a published author now.
Right.
I mean, you know, people will be following. You just said, I want to help other people, so you got to pick up a book, you know? But do you think maybe you want to take what you've done here, because you're encouraging other people, and turn it to a career as a writer?
Yeah.
Okay, like maybe like a advice column, or what do you think?
I want to write my own book about my life, and I want to write about advice columns.
You like that?
I want to do that too.
Yeah.
And I want to be a physical therapist.
Nice. That's good aspiration. So I'm really glad you were with me on the show today, okay?
Thank you.
Alrighty. We're talking to Jordann Simon today. Jordann, how you doing?
Good.
Tell us about the piece that you have in the Kaleidescope magazine.
It's like a short story called Thunder, and it's about these kids who are abandoned in a storm by their babysitter.
By the babysitter? Wow. And so when you were writing this story, were you thinking about what makes you scared? Were you thinking about what makes your friends scared? I mean, what were you thinking about as you were writing the story?
I was thinking, what situation, if I were in, what situation would I freak out in?
Yeah.
And I thought of being kind of
I would probably freak out in the same way too, right? So when you found out that your piece was going to be in the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
I was happy, but the funny thing was when I came into my classroom from my math class, I had a standing ovation walking in.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. So when you hear a kid say, I don't like to read, how would you encourage them to read?
I would tell them that reading, it can take you places that you never dreamed of in reality, and that it's a whole new world that you can go travel in by just opening a book.
Right. And what kind of books do you like to read?
I like fantasy and fiction.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
It could be.
All right. Thank you so much for being with me today, okay? We're talking to Kayle Fusina today. So Kayle, how are you?
Good.
Tell us about your piece that's in the Kaleidescope magazine.
Like what it's
What's it called? What's it about?
Oh, Angel Baby, and it's about my little brother.
And your little brother, how old is he?
He would be 7.
Oh, okay. He would be 7. Okay. So when you found out that your piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did that make you feel?
Happy.
Happy. Now, do you like to read?
Yes.
What kind of books do you like to read?
The one and only Ayden is our March reading month this year, and I really like it.
So when you hear a kid say, you know what, I don't like to read, how would you encourage them to read?
Like I would show them some interesting books that they would be interested in, probably.
What type of books are you interested in?
What is the author's name? I forgot the author's name. It's Sweet Sunny. Well, these are separate books. Sweet Sunny and Drama, Smile, Sisters, a lot of other books. I forgot the names.
So you don't like just one particular genre, you
Yeah.
like different genres, right?
Well, they're all graphic novels.
Oh, okay. Oh, you like graphic novels with the pictures and all that in there? Okay. So do you think writing would be something you would do in the future?
Maybe.
Maybe? Or if you were to become a writer, would you want to become a graphic novelist, like the ones you like to read?
Yes.
Okay. That's really good. So thank you for being with us on the show today. All right. We are talking to Keith Judkins today. How you doing?
Good.
Tell us about the piece that you put into the Kaleidescope magazine.
It was just all about how you're supposed to behave when your teacher wasn't there, and when you have a sub, do the same that you do for your teacher.
When you found out that your piece had been put into the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you feel?
Surprised.
You were surprised? Now, do you like to read, Keith?
Yes.
What type of books do you like to read?
I like to read Dr. Seuss books. And my favorite book from Dr. Seuss is Red Fish, Blue Fish, and One Fish, Two Fish. It's something like
One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish.
Yeah.
I like that book too. So when you hear a kid say, you know, I don't like to read, how would you help them to like to read?
I'll bring a book up to them and tell them if they would like to read the book that I brought up to them, and if if they don't want to read it, I'll just try to tell them reading is a good thing.
Do you think one day you may want to become a writer?
Yeah.
Maybe. All right. Well, thank you so much, Keith, for being with us on the show today. We're talking to Kendall Kapa today. Kendall, how are you doing today?
Good.
Now, tell us about your piece that's in the Kaleidescope magazine.
My piece is about hippos, my favorite animal on earth.
Why do you like hippos so much?
I have so many stuffed animals that I'm like gallons.
Gallons? And so you're talking about hippos in your piece. So what are you talking about with the hippos? Are they doing something?
I'm talking about some interesting facts, where they live, and what I would do all day if I was a hippo for the entire week.
So when you found out that your piece was selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react?
Like, what the heck is going on?
Were you excited when you went home and told your parents? How did they react?
Mom actually was the one who told me so.
Oh, so you were really excited about that.
Yeah.
Now, how would you encourage a child who doesn't like to read to read?
That, like, there's always a book that is in there. That is in their thing. If, for example, if they like animals, there's plenty of animal books out there. They can find something they like.
And do you think being a writer is something that you'll do in the future?
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Kendall. We're talking today to Khadeeja Islam. Khadeeja, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Tell us about the piece in the Kaleidescope magazine.
I wrote a short story called Cloudy with the Chance of Bullies. I feel really strong about bullying. I just don't like how people bully other people. I think they should be shamed, so I decided to write my feelings down in a story.
So when you found out that your piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
I was so happy. I kept believing that, like, finally, if my piece was published, then maybe people will actually think about like how bullying is, like they should stand up for it.
Because bullying is sad. It's very sad what people do when people bully each other. So when you hear a kid say, "I don't like to read," how would you encourage them to read?
Well, I would ask them, do you like watching movies? And if they say yes, then I go like, if you like watching movies, then you should start reading too, because when you read, then you imagine. Like you just close your eyes and imagine what the book is about, and it's like watching a movie.
What kind of books do you like to read?
Well, I finished the Red Queen series. I like the Harry Potter series, the Percy Jackson series.
So do you think writing is in your future?
Yeah, I dream of being an author.
Oh yeah, what kind of author would you like to be?
Like a mystery / romance.
Oh yeah. Oh good. Well, thanks for coming with me on the show today.
You're welcome.
We are talking to Mackenzie Brodzik. Mackenzie, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. What is the name of your piece in the Kaleidescope?
My piece is called Frightened with False Fire.
And what's it about?
It is about two friends that had their friendship ruined based on the spreading of a rumor.
Oh, tell us a little more about that.
Well, basically it was about a girl named Rose trying to figure out why her friend basically blamed her for something she didn't do. And it was a rumor about the two of them kind of trying to like get together, and the rumor ended up by them saying that they wanted to kiss while watching cartoons. And she thought it was kind of ridiculous, but her friend was really offended by it.
Yeah.
And he ended the friendship because he thought she spread it.
Wow, that's really sad how rumors can do that to really good friendships, you know? So when you found out that that piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
I was really excited. I was glad to see that I actually wrote something that people actually liked.
Now, do you like to read?
I love reading.
What kind of books do you read?
I read science fiction and horror, basically.
Oh, I love horror. I love horror. I used to read. My mom didn't want me to read it when I was younger. I used to read a lot. So yeah, totally feel you on that one. So when you hear someone who says, "I don't like to read," how would you encourage them to read?
I say don't think about how much work it takes trying to understand what the writer's saying. I try to tell them focus on the story, because the stories are really entertaining. And I think that if they read something that they like, they'll enjoy it more.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
I would love for it to be my future.
What would you write about?
I was actually interested in filmmaking, so I was interested in doing screenplays.
Screenplays? Oh, good. Well, thank you for being with me today.
Oh, glad.
We're talking to Margaret Johnson today. Margaret, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Now tell us about the pieces in the Kaleidescope magazine.
Well, some of them are really good and interesting, and I found out that like a bunch of the authors are my age. So.
Good. So what was your piece about?
My piece was about the kids who get like stuck in the back of schools and don't really get noticed as much as others.
Mm-hmm. So you wanted to make sure your piece reflected the people that aren't always popular, basically, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you found out that your piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
I was pretty calm about it. I realized that like I didn't know about it until my friends told me, and they were very proud of me. So it was very shocking, but it was fun.
What kind of books do you like to read?
Mostly realistic fiction and probably fantasy.
Like fantasy and realistic fiction?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you hear a kid say, I don't like to read, how would you encourage them to read?
Probably start them off with like simple books, as in like books that I usually would read on a daily basis, and books that are like very suitable for kids and they're very fun to read.
Like what type of books do you read?
You
said realistic fiction and fantasy, but like some other books, would you use some different books too?
Kind of.
Kind of, okay. Do you think writing is in your future?
Probably, but I won't pursue it as much right now. Well, right now as in the future. So.
Oh, okay, good. Well, thank you for being with us on the show today, Margaret. We're talking to Mathews Schick today. Matthew, how are you doing?
Good.
So tell us about the piece that's in the Kaleidescope magazine.
When I wrote about my trip to Michigan adventures, I told about like the rides and all the stuff that happened there for my small moment writing piece.
Okay.
And I told like details of like the rides.
So did you go on a roller coaster? Did you go?
Yeah.
What about the one ride that spins around in a circle? It goes like really fast in a circle. You get on that one? Or did you go on the ship that goes like this, like that? What other rides did you get on?
I went on the corkscrew, the Mad Mouse, and some other rides.
Did your stomach do that weird thing where it kind of flips inside? How did you make that? Did you go like, oh, like that when it did that way?
Yeah, and when it also like in the roller coasters when the part like goes down, my heart feels like it's kind of beating out of my chest.
Your heart feels like boom, 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 right? So when you found out that your piece was in the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react?
I felt like very excited, happy, and proud of myself.
Do you like to read?
Yeah.
What kind of books do you like to read?
Like chapter books, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and even some Dr. Seuss books.
How would you encourage a kid that doesn't like to read to read?
I would maybe try to like help them read better, and I would like get even more like funny books or anything like that.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
I don't know yet.
We'll find out, right? Well, thank you so much for being with me today. We are talking to Mikayla Booton today. Mikayla, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking. I want to know about your piece in the Kaleidescope magazine, so tell us about it.
My piece in the Kaleidoscope magazine is about being a survivor of the Titanic named Camelia Grayston.
What made you want to write about that?
We were doing a project in the class about it, and I thought that it would be a great opportunity to be one of the passengers as being in first person instead of being in second or third person.
When you found out that the piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you make you feel? How did you react to it?
I was very surprised because I didn't know what the Kaleidoscope was for a while, and then it was very, very big to me because I had never done something so big.
Well, now you're a published author. How do you like that?
I like that a lot.
Do you like to read?
I love to read.
What kind of books do you like to read?
I like to read mystery, and I like to read nonfiction mostly.
What type of nonfiction?
some about science and molecules and about animals lots of times and history and historical figures.
That sounds good. Sounds good. So how would you encourage a kid who doesn't like to read to read?
I would encourage them by finding something that they want to read because there are so many different books for different people.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
Yes, I do think it is widely in my future because I would like to be a psychiatrist when I'm older, and I would like to write some books on it.
Be fascinating people you talk to. Well, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thanks.
We're talking to Naomi Hardy. Naomi, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Now, can you tell us about your piece that's in the Kaleidescope magazine?
Well, soccer is my favorite sport, so I just felt like I wanted to write about it because I've never scored a goal before. So, I wanted to, since I was so excited, I wanted to write about it. And
do you enjoy soccer a lot? You enjoy playing it too? And what position do you play in soccer?
My coach actually tells me which positions I'm going to be playing. So there's midfield, goalie, there's forward, and there's defense.
Okay. When you found out that your piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
Inside my head, I was like really excited and screaming, but I just wanted to keep quiet though because I didn't want to like scream out loud.
Well, if something good happens, you should shout out loud. Something good happening. So, when you hear a kid say, "I don't like to read," how would you encourage a child like that to read?
I would say, well, it's good to read because it's actually fun. Because there's a lot of like adventures in the books and cool things that you can learn about when you read. Because there's informational books that you can learn about.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
Yeah, because I really do enjoy writing.
You do enjoy writing. What type of things do you like to write about?
I like to write about my life, informational stuff like about my favorite animal, and I like to write about like stuff in my imagination.
Imagination. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
We're talking to Nicole Lucka. How you doing?
Good.
Now, tell us about the piece that's in the Kaleidescope magazine that you wrote.
I wrote about when my dog was running away because I was writing about it because I think it had like a lot of emotions. It was like first you were like worried and then you were like happy and relieved that we got him back.
What kind of dog do you have?
It's a puggle. It's like a black puggle and it's not my dog. It's my grandma and grandpa's dog.
So it's your grandma and grandpa's dog? Oh, okay. Do you play with it a lot?
No, because they live in Ohio.
Oh, okay. So you get a chance to see it all the time. So when you found out that your piece had been selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react?
I was like really excited and happy.
You were happy? That's good. That's good. So do you like to read?
Yes.
What kind of books do you like to read?
I like to read like books that are like include like magic. Like at my house I have like a lot of Enchanted Pony Academy books. And then I just finished, it was like about Electra and there was a girl in a wheelchair and then she got to ride the pony even though that she was in a wheelchair. And then there's other ones that one can turn invisible. And then like one of them, she loses a special like token and then she is like in big trouble, but then in like I think 10 weeks it has like a security thing where it comes back.
And that's a story that you enjoy reading? Okay. Do you think being a writer is in your future?
I don't know.
Don't know.
When I grow up, I want to be a vet.
A what?
A vet.
A vet? Now, how would you encourage a kid who doesn't like to read to read?
I would say that like sometimes when you read, you get like a lot of information about the characters, and like it's really exciting to read because you like don't know what's gonna happen next.
All right. Well, thank you for being with us today, Nicole. We're talking to Nolan Clemente today. How are you doing today?
Good.
Tell us about your piece that you have in the Kaleidescope magazine. What's the title?
Making Christmas cookies.
Making Christmas cookies? And I guess it's about making Christmas cookies. So tell us about the piece, what you describe in that piece.
I kind of tell about how we make them with my grandma and how we send them to people.
Oh, you send them to people? Okay, for Christmas. Nice. When you found out that your piece was selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
I was shocked.
You were shocked. Now, do you like to read?
If I'm at my school, we read Dear Time, like we read silent reading. And once I kind of read, I just get sucked into it, and I never want to really stop, so yeah.
You like to read? So if you hear a kid say, I don't like to read, how would you encourage them to read?
I don't know.
Do you think there are books out there for everyone, no matter what their interests are?
Yes.
Oh, yeah? Do you think if you get older, you'll become a writer?
I hope so.
Hope so? Okay, well, thank you so much, Nolan, for being with us on the show today. We're talking to Nora Riley today. Nora, how are you doing today?
Great.
Now, what was the name of the piece that you put into the Kaleidoscope magazine?
The library.
What was it about?
Well, it was about a girl who had lost her mother, and she ends up discovering a library, and she is the memory keeper like her mother before her.
Oh, that's fascinating. So you like fantasy and stuff like
definitely.
that, okay? Now, what inspired you to write that story?
I was kind of just brainstorming it, and it was winter, and I just kind of got this idea about a girl who finds a library, and it was winter.
How would you inspire kids to read who don't like to read?
That it's really fun once you get into it, and any kind of genre and any kind of book really is good once you start getting into it.
When you found out that your piece had been selected for the Kaleidoscope magazine, how did you react?
I was really excited and surprised. Since I don't do a lot of writing contests, it was really special for me. And to be able to meet and see other authors is really good for my experience too.
Do you think you may become a writer in your future?
Maybe, especially the older I get, I might make more decisions in my life, and I think writing could definitely be one of them.
All right, well, thank you so much, Nora, for joining us today. We're talking today to Robert Crossten. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Tell us about your piece that you have in the magazine.
In my piece called Nighttime, it's pretty much about this man who's in with a group who have like just robbed a bank, and how he like feels sorry for doing it, so he takes the money and turns himself in.
Wow, okay. When you found out that your piece was selected for the Kaleidoscope magazine, how'd you react to that?
I was pretty excited. I mean, I haven't really wrote that many things. I mean, it was my first poem, really. So I was pretty excited.
When you hear someone say they don't like to read, for yourself, how would you encourage that person to read?
I would just tell them about, if I knew them well enough and what kinds of things they like, I'd try to interest them in books that have exactly what they like and show them and possibly get them to watch some movies that are based off of books so they could be interested in the book.
So what kind of things do you like to read?
Sci-fi, a little bit of horror.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
Pretty much. Yeah.
What would you write?
I'd probably do a little bit of biography, a little bit of horror, pretty much in everything.
All right, well, thanks for being with me today, Robert.
Welcome.
We are talking to Sam Yerian today. Sam, how are you doing?
Good.
Now, tell us about your piece that's in the Kaleidoscope magazine.
The name of it is The Forest. It's a science fiction story,
and it's about this guy where he goes in the Sam's Club and he walks through this door and he gets trapped in this forest with all these like creatures and stuff.
At Sam's Club. That's great. That's almost like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So when you wrote this story, was it because you go to Sam's Club a lot? Is it just you like the name? You know, why did you write the story?
My name is Sam.
That'll do it. So when you found out that your piece that got selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react?
I was really excited. At first, I didn't even know what it was, though. So I was just happy. But I didn't know because my teacher pulled 3 kids. So.
And you were one of them. Awesome. So if you wanted to encourage a kid who doesn't like to read, how would you go about doing that?
Like, find things that interest you, like if you're into sports or like action and stuff, and just find those books and read them, and like maybe you can write one.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe? All right. Well, thanks for being with us today.
You're welcome.
We're talking to Trinity Phillips today. Trinity, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Tell us about your piece in the Kaleidescope magazine.
I wrote a memoir called Cherokee Roses. It's about Cherokee roses and my Cherokee culture. Both my parents are from North Carolina, in Cherokee County, near the Smoky Mountains, where kind of like those Indians live. And my dad is, I think, 1/4 Cherokee, and my mom, she's not as Cherokee, but they both have Cherokee in them. And it's about going to visit my grandparents, and when we visit them, every time we leave, my grandma has to like say goodbye to her only grandkids. So I connect that to the Cherokee Roses, because the story behind the Cherokee Roses is that on the Trail of Tears, like children would die because it was
a sad time.
Yeah,
it was a very sad time. Yeah, I actually have Native American ancestry too, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah, so I can tell from the way you're just describing it, just that connection to the past really affected you, and you wanted to make sure you immortalized that in words. And so when you found out that your piece that got selected for the Kaleidescope magazine, how did you react to that?
I was really excited because I was proud of it. It wasn't only an assignment in school. It was something that I worked really hard on, and I was really proud of it because I knew that it had a lot of emotion in it.
Yeah, I can tell just from the way you're speaking about it. No, it really connects with you. And having that sense of family, that continuity, seeing the pain from the past is all, coming back, I think that's wonderful. Do you think that being a writer is in your future?
Yes. I wouldn't choose it as like a full-on career, but I could see myself writing poems or just small, even if it's something that I print off and give to a family member as a gift, or just put something on the wall, print it off and put it on the wall. I can see myself doing that.
How would you encourage someone who doesn't like to read to read?
There's books out in the world for everybody. There's so many books. I mean,
you're bound to find something.
Just keep looking. Yeah,
like
for sure.
That.
Just keep looking.
I like that. Well, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you.
We are talking to Tyler Finkfighter today. Tyler, how are you doing today?
Good.
Now, tell us about the piece that you have in the Kaleidescope magazine.
I wrote a story called We're Going to Disney, and it was about the first time I ever went to Disney and how my mom surprised us at the airport.
Oh, were you jumping up and down? What were you were very excited. Who are some of your favorite Disney characters?
I like the classic Mickey Mouse, and then I like Buzz Lightyear because that was Toy Story was one of my favorite movies when I was a little kid. I used to watch it all the time. So.
That's a good movie. I like that movie too.
Yeah.
How would you encourage a child who doesn't like to read to read?
I would tell them that you can figure out a ton of stuff for reading because there's whole different types of genres. If they like mysteries, like to solve mysteries, they can read mystery books. And if they like nonfiction stuff about, I don't know, just anything, they can read about that. And they can, if they like aliens and stuff like that, they can read science fiction. So there's a lot of stuff they can figure out from books.
So you would tell a kid that doesn't like to read, say, hey, whatever you like, it's in a book, basically, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think being a writer is in your future?
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Tyler, for being with me today.
You're welcome.
This is Parker J. Cole, and we are talking to Karen Allman. She is the organizer of the 27th Kaleidescope event today. Karen, how are you doing?
I'm great.
You know, it has been so much fun talking to these kids. Once again, and thank you for inviting me again to showcase our young Michigan authors. You know, when we do these events, what are we trying to tell the world about our youth?
We needed to let them know that they're the future. This is what I said to the kids today when we were talking to them, that we believe in promoting literacy, and the way to make our world more literate is to look to the next generation.
Exactly. And what was so fascinating is that some of the kids that were here, I had interviewed them 2 years ago.
Oh.
And it was so nice to see them grow in their craft. And so that was just so wonderful. And I really like the diversity of the stories that are being told in Kaleidoscope. I love the new cover of the cover
gorgeous.
too.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. So, you know, we want to really let parents and teachers and everyone know that literacy is a problem in Michigan. We really want to let them know that. And so what can we do as parents, as teachers, friends, aunts, uncles, to help our kids learn how to read, enjoy reading, and make reading a part of their life?
Yeah, I think making it a part of our own lives is an important part, right? When they see us reading and writing and making it an important part of our lives, then they'll know that it needs to be an important part of their lives too. So just being models is a big thing that we can do.
Right.
And then also just encouraging them and recognizing that being literate can mean so many different things. So just because they don't love the same kind of books we loved when we were little doesn't mean they're not going to be a reader. You know, we need to encourage them to find their passion and the things that they really want to be into.
Karen, thank you so much for being with me today, for letting me do this. I always enjoy it, so thank you again.
Thank you.